Okay, Erev Tov, everyone.
After
The background, as you can see, the background is a car. As I said, I'm at a wedding and don't want not to have the shiur, so I will go back to the wedding after the shiur. And I'm very proud of myself that I actually can work out the technology to be able to get my computer to work from the car. So here we are, and our topic is we started discussing in the last shiur. What can we take from a Rav Kook who died, is it 90 years? Yes, 90 years ago. Rav Kook passed away 90 years ago, 1935. And reform was, and conservative were in the world, certainly weren't where they're at today. And he was not, he came from Lithuania. It wasn't felt in Lithuania. It certainly wasn't felt in Eretz Yisrael at the time. It was felt maybe in Europe and in North America, but not in Eastern Europe. It was felt in Western Europe, maybe Middle Europe, kind of call it Hungary, not in Lithuania, not that far east in Europe, not in Israel. So I don't know that Rav Kook dealt seriously with the issue, and it's changed and it's gone through a lot of changes. But what the idea is to look at how Rav Kook treated challenges to religion that he had in his time, and not to copy paste, because you can't copy paste different surroundings, different issues, different people, different times, but you can take the concepts, or the way of thinking, the way that he treats things. You can take from that and use that to help with how to deal with the issues that we are dealing with, and that's what we're trying to do. So we mentioned last time. Maybe I can, one second, maybe I can do this a little better. I want to see. Mm-mm-mm. Okay. No, I want to, on the one hand, to see my source, and on the other hand, mm, whatever, I'll just do it this way. And if anyone has anything to say, please speak up. So we mentioned 2 weeks ago the basic concept of Rav Kook was that he said he was called, he heard a calling, like a voice in the wind, like a call from heaven, to come to Eretz Yisrael, to bridge the two sides of the modern chalutzim and settlers, modern Zionism, which was non-religious, sometimes anti-religious, who wanted to rebuild Am Yisrael in Eretz Yisrael, and the traditional Jews who were very, very religious, very non-capital C conservative, and not afraid, very afraid of modernity and anything that has to do with new ideals and things like that, who were living in Eretz Yisrael but were afraid of the atmosphere, of the views, of the ideals that these new immigrants were bringing to Eretz Yisrael. Very much interested in Torah, very little interested in a modern state. And Rav Kook said, I am coming to make these two sides meet, because there's good on each side. And if they stop fighting against one another, each side can get something good from the other side. So I'm trying to take this concept. This is what we discussed the previous time we met, to take this concept and say, okay, so there's a point in Orthodoxy. We have to be faithful to our tradition. We have to, if there's room for changes, they have to come within halachic criteria, within a halachic discussion. It can't be done just because we want it to be done, or we bring new ways of making halachic decisions, and then we say we can make decisions. It has to be done according to the traditional methods of making halachic decisions. But at the same time, the needs and the sensitivities and what the non-Orthodox movements are fighting for, we have to listen to that sensitivity, to those needs. We have to address those needs. It can be about all kinds of different values, things that are important to them, things that do have value. Some things are wrong and we object them, but some things, the value itself, the need itself is legitimate or is even important. And we have to look for other halachic ways how to address them and integrate them into modern Jewish Orthodox halacha. So that's one attitude of taking something from a concept of Rav Kook didn't say what I'm saying now, but I'm trying to take his method of thinking about these issues to try and bring it to our challenges, the things that we deal with in our time. Another idea, and this is something we did not discuss previously, I would say two things, well, a few things, one by one. One of them is that Rav Kook spoke a lot about the Jewish, in Hebrew it's called segula. It's like in Yiddish, it's called the pintele yid. Kind of deep inside, there's a yid. A yid is not only Yiddish, it's also kind of saying a Jew, not just a person who happens to be born to a Jewish mother, but a person who has a spiritual deep inside him, even if externally he doesn't like a lot of things about Judaism. Deep inside him, there's a strong Jewish side, and this sometimes is deep inside, but doesn't we don't see it so easily externally. But if a person is interested in being connected to Am Yisrael and fighting for Am Yisrael, then we see that he's still a partner. There's a brit, there's a covenant between all Jews. And if he cares about Am Yisrael, that means that covenant is alive within him, even if Judaism and the religious aspect is not important for him. And therefore, said Rav Kook in his time, people who want Aliyah to Eretz Yisrael, who want to create a Jewish state. In his time, there wasn't a Jewish state. They want to create a Jewish state. They're willing to sacrifice for a Jewish state, for Eretz Yisrael, for Am Yisrael. So you see that they are part of the covenant. They haven't stepped out. They haven't disconnected from this covenant of the Jewish people. So we can work with them. There's a connection there. We have to see how to work with them, but don't sever the connections. So I'm saying the same concept here. If a person wants to be a reform or a conservative Jew, I have disagreements with him, but he's saying I want to be a Jew. If a reform rabbi, I'm saying this because of this acquaintance of mine who's a woman who's a reform rabbi, and I had this long discussion with her about it. And the drive of her life is, by the way, the drive of her life is not to take Orthodox people and turn them into reform. She doesn't care about that. If you want to be Orthodox, that's fine. But she wants people who have no connection to Judaism, she wants to connect them to Judaism. Even though her Judaism and mine, we have disagreements, but she's saying, I care about the Jewish people. And if she's saying, I care about the Jewish people, or a conservative person, or conservative rabbi wants, this is what they believe is right for Am Yisrael in this time, and they're fighting for that, that means that they want to be part of the covenant. Don't sever the connections. We can argue, we can struggle in different ways, legitimate ways of struggling over values, over ideas, but don't sever the connection. So that's another way of taking something from a Rav Kook and using it in a different context, in our context. Another idea is that Rav Kook was very much aware of how much the time that you live in influences you. In his time, it wasn't, I mean, there were certain values, certainly, freedom, democracy, equality, and I think they've gone and developed and strengthened from Rav Kook's time to our time. And I think the main value in our time in the Western world, even more than I would say there's a struggle between equality and freedom, but I would say freedom even more than equality. I am a free person. I am allowed to do whatever I believe in, whatever I want to do, and we have to accept, as long as I'm not directly hurting another person. I agree with this, but I think we hurt other people in other ways that sometimes are not so direct. So the restrictions should be more than just I'm not directly harming another person. But in any case, this is the spirit of our times. And sometimes I see it. I see it in religious people, in religious youth, high school age that I teach, that you try to speak to them, to educate, to Jewish religious Orthodox values, frameworks, restrictions, obligations, and so on. And sometimes I'm very open to discussion, to questions, to their freedom. They're allowed to ask questions. They're allowed to question the home that they grew up in. I'm a rabbi. Of course, they're going to question me. they're going to have objection to me. I'm trying to push something on them, obligations and restrictions. Obviously, they're not going to just take this without asking, without questioning. And I will give them absolutely 100% the ability to question and to make their own independent decisions. But I think it's legitimate that I want to say something to them. I want to talk to them about it. I want to convince them or show them reasoning or things that they object to, and they have reasons why they object to them. I want to show them why maybe they shouldn't object to them, and so on. But sometimes their attitude is, who are you to talk to me? It's a free world. I don't have to listen to you. Who are you? I mean, one of the students said this to me once. She was very, showing very strong objection to the things that I was saying, and I said to, that's fine. You're a free person. You'll make your decisions. But I'm also a free person. I have the right to speak with you, to tell you my opinions, and I'm inviting you to listen to my opinions and consider what I'm saying. And her answer to me was, mamish, in these words, in Hebrew, not in English. Her response to me was, "Who are you to tell me what you think? I'm so free. You don't have any right to talk to me." So it's sometimes it's very difficult to raise discussion. So you have to think of how to do that, how to interest people, how to show them that you respect them, and then maybe we can have a discussion and so on. That has a lot to do with this issue. But the point I'm making is that sometimes they have been swept away. They haven't even questioned the liberalism that they are projecting. They haven't questioned if this is right. This seems to be, I call it, their Ma'amad Har Sinai. Everybody has their beliefs, their basic beliefs. And just as a religious person believes in Aseret HaDibrot or the Torah given Mehar Sinai and doesn't question that, if there are different perspectives, different hashkafat olam amongst religious Jews, so okay, I can discuss with you which one is right. But discussing whether or not the Torah is right, there's no room for that. It was given at Har Sinai. With the same strength, I feel people who object to Torah values or who believe in liberalism in an extreme way, what they had at their Ma'amad Har Sinai was a God that they don't believe them came down from wherever and said, you have to be liberal, 100% liberal. That is the one and only value that you have to adhere to. And if you're not 100% liberal, you are absolutely what's the word? Worse than heretic. You are a blas. You are a bad person. Sorry?
The
In
word
English?
is heretic.
Heretic, but
Oh,
I
you
think there's
said
a
it. You
stronger
said,
word than heretic.
I think you're
Whatever.
epicurus.
Yeah, but I'm looking for a word. No mishane right now. But you got the idea. So sometimes these kids, one second, I'm just gonna mute because
Now, this is not.
okay. So if you want to speak up, please just unmute yourselves. I muted everybody so we won't have background noises. But I'm saying that that sometimes people grow up in a certain generation, and certain things that everybody around them believes, they take it as truth. There's a God-given truth. They don't believe in God, but they have their own God. It's an absolute truth, and they don't question it, and they get carried away in that. So Rav Kook uses this in his time to say that this generation that wants renewal and wants Am Yisrael to come back to be a natural nation in the land of Israel and be a strong nation, strong physically and financially, and not be so spiritual, like, you've overdone the spirituality and all this. Sometimes they are carried away with things that they didn't even really look into and look into in depth and try and understand if there's a way of combining them. So you have to be more understanding and lenient with these people, because it's not that they've decided that they want to go to war against you. It's that they got carried away with the spirit of their time, and I would say, how do you say in different languages? In Hebrew, leat leat, in Aramaic, kima kima, in Arabic, shwoya shwoya. How do you say that in Latin? There must be a good term for that in Latin.
Relax.
Step by step. So don't
Chill out.
Yeah, but you don't be so vehement in your objection to these people. This is what the world around them believes, and they so leat, try to talk to them, try to make a small baby step in in a more productive direction. I know the story in the Gemara and the Talmud about the rabbi who comes to a certain town, and he comes to a fork in the road, and there's a kid sitting there, and he asks the kid, which is the way to the town, and he says to him, "This is the long short way. This is the short long way." So he hears the word short, he goes the short way. And what happens is the short way reaches the wall of the city and you can't get in. The long way is longer, it goes around, but it reaches the gate of the city. So the long way is the shortest way there is. You're not going to get anywhere by banging heads against one another, and it's not going to do any. It's not going to bring any benefits to Am Yisrael. So leat, try to make small baby steps that will be productive. I believe that in the long run, we will work things out, but we have to try. It's on the other hand, it's our responsibility to try and do what we can in our generation, in our surroundings, in a constructive way, and don't be so don't have such strong feelings against them. One of the reasons why is because they've gotten swept away in some things that I also disagree with, but it's not going to be helpful to just yell at them. What you have to do is try and explain to them, or even like if we put the different points together, there is value. Liberalism, freedom, individual autonomy. These are values that I believe are positive, and the Torah believes are positive, but they need to be balanced with other values. Try and work on that leat. That's much better than fighting against people and just creating a lot of animosity within Israel. Um, if no one stops me, I might just continue. If and we'll do one and continue to one more point before maybe we'll open for another point of discussion. Okay, I'll continue one more point. Another point that our Huk makes is the following: in the halacha, if a person transgresses a certain prohibition of the Torah, the first thing you're supposed to do is approach them gently. In liberalism, you're not supposed to do anything; just leave them be. But in Jewish halacha, you're supposed to approach them and first of all ask them, maybe they're not aware of the fact that it's forbidden. Maybe they don't know. Maybe they need to be taught. Maybe they do know, but try and the word in Hebrew is tochecha, rebuke, reproach. Yes? But don't do it in a negative way. If you tell the person you're a terrible person, you're a heretic, you're a blasphemer, you're all kinds of calling them terrible names, it's not going to be very constructive to getting them to listen to you. If you take a person, if you yell at someone in front of everybody, not a good idea. If you respect them and tell them, please, I'd like to talk to you about, I saw you did something. I don't know. Do you know that this is forbidden? I'll explain to you why it's not a good idea. Maybe you want to tell someone that by heaven you're going to be punished for this. Maybe you don't want to use that idea. Maybe you want to tell them it causes damage to the people of Israel. Whatever you want to say, try and speak to them in this way. But the Gemara says in one place, many, many, many generations ago, in the time of the Gemara, in the time of the Tanaim, in the time of the Mishnah, the Gemara says that we're missing three things. Number one, you need to be a person who knows how to give tochecha, how to give this rebuke. And we don't have those people anymore. Number two, you have to know how to what rebuke is, how to perform it properly. Or maybe that's number one. Number two, you have to be a person who can listen to tochecha. The person has to be a person who's able to accept tochecha when someone rebukes him. And three, the person who gives the rebuke has to be a person who's worthy of giving that rebuke. And the Tanaim say we're not worthy of that anymore. So we don't have that tochecha. So that's kind of that's out. So that means that anyone who sins, anyone who performs sins against halacha in the traditional, in the Orthodox way of understanding it, nonetheless is possibly considered shogeg and not mizid, meaning he's not doing this intentionally. He's doing this because he's making a mistake. His knowledge is mistaken. He doesn't mean to do it. What English term would you use for shogeg? Unintentional. He's doing it unintentionally. A person can eat something that's not kosher for one of two reasons. Many reasons, but one of two reasons that would be shogeg is one is he doesn't know that it's not kosher food. He thinks it's kosher food. It's non-kosher food. The other could be because he doesn't know. He knows it's non-kosher food, but he doesn't know that it's not permissible to eat non-kosher food. Or says the Rav Kook, no one told him, no one taught him. No one is capable of giving the proper way of teaching this or rebuking someone today. So therefore, maybe he continues to be considered unintentional shogeg and not intentional, not mezid. So this takes a lot of the negative heavy weight out of the situation and makes it more possible for a person to treat a person who disagrees with him. And he's not saying, I'm doing it unintentionally. He's saying, I'm doing it intentionally. I'm against religion. I'm this, I'm that. But yet, or I believe in this is primitive. We in the Reform movement decided that that's too primitive, and we say that it's permissible. It's not forbidden. It never was really forbidden. Whatever. And he's being strong against you, but at the same time, you can look at it in a softer, more mild way that gives you tools to create a positive relationship and a positive discussion with this person in a more constructive way. I'm going to give it some rest and open for reactions if anyone is interested in saying something. Go ahead. Anyone who's interested, take the floor.
Okay, ladies first,
screen.
but you're on mute.
Tova, you're muted.
Tova, go ahead. You're on mute.
Okay. All right.
Yes, we hear you.
Okay. I'm thinking of all the people, now the adults who have come through the non-religious school system, who have very little knowledge about Judaism and what it's about. And I think and always say that the schools have to, at least they have to teach Jewish values. They have to have a class once a week talking about what Judaism is all about. Not to tell them how, that they have to be religious or not religious, but just to teach them what Judaism is about. Just they should know that Judaism is the basis for everybody else's religion of Islam and Christianity and Islam, and they have to realize that there's some value to the things in Judaism. They should at least know it. They don't want to keep it, don't. Nobody is forcing them, but they should know what it is. Maybe they'll like some parts of it, but they don't know.
And of course, I agree with you. And it's interesting that you're an educator and you keep on coming to that point,
Yeah.
returning to that point. But the point I'd like to take from that is that, the person who objects to that or who thinks that anyone who wants to teach anything religious is trying to coerce me, is trying to turn me into a Baal Tshuva. And to which I would respond, and if he is, listen to him, consider what he's saying, think about it openly. But no, people are very much against it today. Some people, not all people. So there's a lot of objection to this, and to the point, by the way, where I am exposed recently to the fact that more non-religious people are sending their elementary school children to religious schools because the non-religious schools have moved so far away from teaching anything Jewish that they want their children to study something, so they send them to religious schools. And so in some of the religious schools, the non-religious part of the school, of the student body, has grown so much that the religious parents are taking their children out of the school to send them to a more strict, not ultra orthodox, but kind of, more stringent Orthodox school, because so it's creating kind of very strange things in the world. But yes, some people are there where they don't want to hear anything. They don't want their children to hear anything and to study anything. But the points that I made are relevant to these people as well, because this is part of something they've been swept away with. They've gotten caught up in a certain thing that's against everything, that it's against their liberal rights or their freedom. And we don't mean to do it against anyone's freedom. Study a little bit, know what's it about, and you make your free decision, if anything, and what to do about it in your life. But they think of it this way, so all the points that I made are relevant to this in a way that, how do I look at this person? Because I hear religious people speaking about these people who fight against what we call in the educational system hadata, that you teach anything Jewish. It's God forbid, pushing religion, forcing religion upon people, and people speak against these people very, very, with great animosity and vehemently. And what I want to say to them is, I don't disagree with you that what they're doing is very wrong. And they're as wrong as you are in the way that you're talking about it, but that's not constructive. Standing in the place of being right and with animosity against towards the other person is not getting us anywhere. Understanding where they're coming from, finding a point of light, a point of truth, a grain of truth in what they're doing is a place to start to be constructive. I'll get back to that soon. Mark, you wanted to speak up.
Yeah, two things I'd like to comment on. The first one is when you're talking about, not taking on the person, not getting mad at the person, but I've always been told in my early days when we used to write letters to the editor and so on in response to an article, some stupid article or whatever. The idea was not to make an ad hominem attack, as it was called, namely not to attack the person, but to deal with the idea. And I think that's along the lines of what you're talking about.
Right.
And yeah, because if you attack the person, you immediately, you've got to get, the other person is going to immediately get defensive,
Right.
understandably, and you get lost. The idea gets lost in the interpersonal animosity, and that's not productive, as you're saying. So we see that in a variety of instances, that if you really do want to communicate and convince somebody, you want them to listen to your argument, and if you just start yelling at them and saying what a fool you are,
Right.
then it's not going to work. On the other hand, I have been known to say some people that, gee, that's really stupid. But all right, we won't go there. The other thing I wanted to mention, I'll comment on, was at the very beginning, you talked about, look, if you have you may or may not be religious, but you have a spirit of wanting to be in Israel, of wanting to build up the country, and a commitment to a Jewish tradition, maybe not Jewish religion,
Or even to
but
the
Jewish.
Jewish people, to the nation.
Sorry?
Even to
Yeah,
the
Jewish
nation,
nation.
to the people. That's
Yeah.
that's a connection to the
And
covenant.
it's occurred to me a long time ago that Judaism is very strange religion, very strange peoplehood, because you can be Jewish without even believing in God, which is pretty weird. I mean, you can't be Christian without believing in God. At least I don't think so, or in Jesus or whatever. But you can't be Jewish. And it's kind of weird, actually. Or maybe it's not weird. Maybe it's the way it should be. And the other guys are weird. Okay. We'll take it one way or another. But it is different, right? And I think it's unique. Maybe it's not unique in terms of Eastern religions, because I don't know anything about Eastern religions, so I won't know. But I think that's perhaps along the lines of what you were discussing at the beginning as well.
Thank you. That's an interesting thought about how unique that is.
It is.
And maybe it has to do with something, maybe it has to do with a lot with what I was saying in the name of Rav Kook, because uh, because what Rav Kook really believes is that there's an inherent godly quality in every person, because every person is created
Right.
with a spirit from God and in the
Right.
image of God, and so to speak, and in those terms. And therefore, he sees something religious in the values that people have. Because, if you believe in justice, not in religion, not in God, But Rav Kook will say that's a godly soul inside you saying that, and so on. And people sometimes are offended by that because they understand it to be condescending. Because a person is saying, "I don't believe in God. Don't tell me that what I have within me is godly." But I think they're misinterpreting it. I don't think that a person who says that means to be condescending, means to say, you don't know what you're talking about. I know better than you what you really think. But he's saying, I have a set of beliefs. I believe that the value system, that the DNA in human beings that creates within them the fact that they want to have some values. Sometimes these values are so distorted, but they want to have some set of beliefs. They don't want to just be a more intelligent gorilla than the next in line gorilla, a little less intelligent than us. They want their life to have value and meaning and to have, and that comes from something godly. And so in that sense, if you're Jewish, that Judaism is there inherent in you in some way, even if you don't recognize it or care about it, and so on. And thank you. That's an interesting point to bring up, and I'll be thinking about that more. And the first thing, actually, and before that, you said about the way that we argue, yes, with like the letter to the editor, address the issue and not the person. That's such a basic demand for any discussion and any struggle for unity in the nation. Address the other one's claims. I see it all over the place. I'll start with a positive example. I am a member of a rabbinic group on Google, a Google group. I think never looked, but I think there are several hundred rabbis on the group, Tzioni Dati rabbis. It's called Rabbanim DL, Rabbanim Dati Leumi. And if you have hundreds of rabbis, you can just imagine how many opinions there are. And but the group has rules. I don't really have time to go in and read the whole thing. I get 10 times a day, the new messages people have sent. It's not one each one. It's like, 100 messages every day. Wow. Maybe one day I'll have time for it. I hear the same from some other people. Some people are very active there. But in the past, I paid more attention to it. And one of the beautiful things about it is that the rule is exactly what you said, Mark. The rule is you can make any argument. You can be very, very adamant in your argument, argue in a very strong, powerful way and language. But it has to be about the claim and not about the person. It's not valid to say you're too open-minded or you're too closed-minded. That there's a, what do you call it? The person who oversees the group, like
Moderator.
a moderator, right? And if you use that, he cuts you off. That's not legit. You can argue, and there are strong arguments, but you have to argue with sources and reasoning and claims. And I find that to be very beautiful. Create that kind of thing. That's what I try to do in life with many people, but you need a partner on the other side. If you have a partner who firmly disagrees with you, but agrees with you that we need to listen to one another and talk with one another in content and not about you're this and you're that, then if you have a partner, you can start working. So we have to try, and sometimes some people on every end you'll find a partner. I tried to initiate something in the religious educational system to get different rabbis together to do it. Right now, it's been put on hold because maybe the positive aspect of it is maybe the religious school system is going to take it, and that's even better than I will initiate, because it will be something more systematic in the educational religious Tzioni Dati religious educational system. But in any case, I was trying to legayes, what's the term, to bring rabbis to
I can't think
get
either.
to get rabbis to join.
Engage no.
I was speaking to different
Sorry.
rabbis, trying to get them to join,
Yes.
and one of them
Recruit.
Recruit. That's
recruit, right. Thank you. To
Good,
recruit
recruit.
rabbis for this, and one of them who I have wonderful discussions with, when we don't agree totally, we don't totally disagree, but we don't totally agree with one another, but always respectful and friendly. And he said to me at one point, while I was talking to him about this, he said, I don't separate people by, by their opinions, if they agree or disagree with me, but by if I can talk to them or not. He said, I don't care if you're Haredi or Tzioni. If you're Tzioni like me or Tzioni like you, he was saying to me. Tzioni Dati like me or Dati Lumi like you, there's a difference. I don't care if there are people who agree with my opinions, but I can't talk to them because anything is I have the truth and there's nothing to talk about. And there are people who think very differently than me, but I can talk to them and it's a constructive discussion. So that was a very valid point that I told him I should call him again and tell him that I've quoted that about 3 times since we talked a few weeks ago. So that's very much along the lines of what you were saying. I would add something very beautiful about Rav Kook's attitude that will connect to what we're discussing today. Rav Kook says that basically every opinion, we won't talk about things that are extreme like, Nazism, but basically ideological positions, people have different opinions and values. There is some kernel of truth in what he's saying. And he says, why does it exist in the world? Just like I believe that in every person, there's something godly. In every view and every value that people have, there's a kernel of truth in there. I can disagree with you, but if you say, I want to be free from God, I don't agree with that, but I agree with the part of I want to be free. And if you say, I don't want you to force your opinions upon me, because I totally disagree with your opinions, so sorry, I agree with my opinions, but I agree that I don't want to force them upon you. So there's always a point of truth in the things that we're arguing about. And so Rav Kook says, because of that, the person you're arguing with, this is very deep. It's even Kabbalic. The person you're arguing with, God is on his side. Not meaning God is totally on his side, but God is on part of his side. Part of what he's saying, God is God-given, is from God. Therefore, you can't run him over. You can't just erase him because there's something godly about what he's saying. You cannot erase him. Therefore, if you try to just be aggressive towards him and erase him, you lose because you can't erase him. The godly point in his opinion is shining, is attractive. It attracts him. It pulls him to accept that opinion and to struggle for that opinion with his energies in his life. Therefore, what should you do? You very much disagree with someone. Look for that kernel of truth. Look for that seed, which is what brings this value to the world, because that's the godly kernel of truth in what he's saying. Separate that from the parts that you disagree with and show him that. Tell him I disagree with 1, and 2 to 100 of 100 points you're making, I disagree with 1 point. I agree with 1 point. I disagree with 99. You're creating a common ground on that 1 point. You're separating it from the other 99 points, and you're saying to him, you're kind of taking you're saying to him, this point is from God, but the others aren't. Let's discuss this. So that's a way of bringing the different godly points from different opinions, bring them together. You'll get perfect truth. What is perfect truth? That is God. Okay, but we're going to move in the right direction. We're going to grow by talking to one another, trying to find the points of agreement. Start an argument with someone you disagree with by looking for the points that you agree upon. Put in place a few things that you agree upon, a few values, a few opinions, a few statements that you both agree upon. And then you're going to continue to broaden your perspective, and you'll find the points that you disagree upon, but you've created a common denominator, and that way your argument will be different. And this I can take from Rav Kook as well and use it with any argument that I want to have with any person that I disagree with, including in our context. And the last point, and I'm going to end here, but other people are welcome to continue discussing this. The last point is that the unity of Am Yisrael is important. We've made this point throughout the discussions on this issue. We need to stay together. Don't break us up. Don't break us into particles. Each person will only with the people that you agree with. A rabbi that I severely, that a Tzioni Dati, Dati Leumi rabbi, that I really disagree with a lot. But I know that he has a lot of good points. I mean, I can learn a lot of positive things from him. But I disagree with a lot of the things he said. But once he wrote this about political parties. We all want a political party that's going to be so much exactly my view that I'm going to be the only one in that party. So if that's true for politics, that's true for a nation as well. If I want the nation of Israel to agree with me, I'm going to be the only one there. So we have to make this work as a nation together. It's not like in Galut where I can make my community and you'll make your shul on the other end of town and we can not step into one another's shuls and have nothing to do with one another. That's Galut. That's dispersing Am Yisrael. We want to bring Am Yisrael together. We want to
Right.
gather the exiles, not only physically, to bring us together and to be a strong nation. And in order to do that, we have to find the ways to to work together and not to just be totally against one another. And so that's another reason why, whether it's in the beginning of the 20th century or in the 20s of the 21st century, that's just as valid in all the different times of gathering Am Yisrael back in Eretz Yisrael.
Okay.
Before we end, reactions to these last
Yeah.
points? Gael.
Yeah, I would like just to mention something related to what you said and related to Rav Kook as well. I don't know if you know the Rav Leon Ashkenazi, who is a French rabbi.
Manitou.
Manitou, nachon. And Manitou is his name. He was part of the French Tzofim during World War II. And this rabbi, so he was born in
I know
Algeria.
the name. I'm sorry to say that I have not studied his teachings.
It's
Yeah.
very, very intelligent, very good
Yes,
decision.
a very good one. And
Very good.
he was also rebuilt. He also, after the World War II, he helped to rebuild the French Judaism, and he was also in favor of um, uh, um, um, making all the communities of the Orthodox on one side and the Reform on the other side, and bring everyone together, and not only Jewish, but also the be close to other religion like the Christians and Islam. And he did that in French, and after that he made Aliyah right after the Six-Day War.
Right.
And also in Israel, he was also wanted to be in this movement to try to bring together all the different community, and it's some part of his teaching, but it's also very interesting and in the same same spirit, same thinking of Rav Kook. So he is very interesting to
Right. Sure.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we have a lot of work to do. We just have to implement all the nice things we said. Yes, Mark?
I don't want to keep you from the chuppah, Rabbi, but just to comment on your last statement, where everybody has, even people who are perhaps quite radical or have radical ideas, there's a kernel of truth to what they say. I hear what you say. I would just add a caution, because this is also the art of propaganda. The art of propaganda is to start with start with something. Well, there's some truth to it, so it's okay. And so you also have to look at the motivation of the person who is broadcasting whatever they're broadcasting. And even though there may be a grain of truth to what they say,
It's
it's wise to be cautious about
the way,
that.
the way he
The
says it.
motivation may not be very pure at all. Maybe exactly the opposite.
Okay. Okay, I hear what you're saying. And I don't disagree with what you're saying. It's a
No.
balance of the different things you need to be aware of when you're dealing with people. And there's a way of doing it which is the one point of it is beware. A person can be doing this in a fishy way, and it's not.
Right.
You need to identify that and beware of that. And also, it can be done in a condescending way. It can be done in a respectful way. It can be done in a condescending way. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. There's some truth to what you say. There's 1 out of 100 in the things you're saying that's true. But, really all the rest of what you're saying is garbage. Is not, it can be, you also have to be very careful to do it in a way that's respectful and constructive. And as I said, you need a partner. If the partner on the other side is not honest in his accepting of the kernel of truth in his eyes in what you say, but he's just pulling a trick against you. You have to be wary of that. I accept that. I understand that. But thank you. That's a constructive comment, and we have to put these different perspectives together in a wholesome picture. Yes, Ilana.
It just reminded me of when I lived in the States. You know, you have sometimes door-to-door missionaries who come door to door, and you open the door and the guy is talking about whatever is in the Bible and et cetera, and you want to be polite and you don't want to be nasty. But more than once I've taken out while talking, reached for a Hebrew Tanakh and said, would you like to see what it looks like in the original? And usually they run away.
I just pointed to the mezuzah. I said, you see this? I'm
Yeah.
Jewish. I'm not interested. Thank you very
But
much.
rather than do that, I said, yes, and would you like to read it? Would you like to see
That's
it in
it.
the
It's
original?
better
You
what you
remember.
yes,
And
better what you
it's
said.
embracing on the one hand and scary as hell on the other.
If you remember our friend Shlomo Brunel, when he tells his story, he says he grew up with the Old Testament and the New Testament.
Uh-huh.
And then he found discrepancies between the two, and he said, I'm going back to the original. That was part of his journey. There was a rabbi, I wonder if you'll know who I'm talking about, who would go to places where whether they're Christian missionaries or Eastern gurus in the Western world, luring people into their beliefs and so on. And he would find young Jewish people attracted to these things, and he would start talking to them, and then, he would bring them back to Judaism until I think it was one of the gurus who complained, you're stealing my clientele. He said, no, I'm just keeping our own.
That's a good answer.
And the present Pope, who I'm a little bit upset with about his
Yeah.
attitudes in the war now, but before the war, he's a very interesting person. He made a proclamation kind of that Christianity is no longer interested in missionizing
The
the
Jews.
Jewish. It's a sister religion, and we're not trying to bring our missionaryism.
To convert. Yeah.
And
That's
And
nice
let-
of them.
let me just add one little thing that you guys might encounter right here in Ra'anana. There's when you drive into to park on the roof parking at the canyon, there's a guard, and if you're not going in the underground parking, but you're going up above, so there's a guard there, and I've run into him twice. But today he was a little bit missionizing,
Really?
with a lot of I hate to say it, no offense meant to anybody, Chabad like he fancies himself very communicative. He's a white-haired guy with a mustache and a beard, not too long a beard, and very good-natured, and he carries on a whole conversation. And at first it looks like he's just trying to take a boring job and enhance it. But then we said blah, 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 and then he said, now say this, now say this, now say this. And clearly he hadn't opened up the gate yet. So I said all those things. But let me tell you, Mark, you're looking, you understand what I'm talking about. There's something there that's like a forced,
Yeah.
it's missionizing. I don't have another word for it.
He
The
shouldn't be
password.
doing that.
It's just the password. That's it. The password of the gate.
Open sesame.
Yeah.
The Sesame, right. Okay.
But-
Interesting.
Next. So thank you for this lengthy discussion we had about this topic for a long time. The next thing we're going to discuss is, it came up here in the last couple of meetings, is what is the mission of Am Yisrael? It might
Okay.
be 5 minutes. It might be 5 meetings. I don't know. We'll see. We'll
Okay.
start.
Sounds good.
Great.
Okay. Enjoy your wedding. We'll let
Thank you.
Check out this
Good night.
guide. Shomer.
I have one
Yeah.
suggestion. Since everybody is on Zoom this time, next time everybody should be live.
Yeah.
I agree.